Hello everybody, this is Dumpster Cat. Welcome back to another video. In this one, I've been really high on Seasons Pass lately. This is going to be the first Tireless testing that we're featuring Seasons Pass, in fact. And so I'm really excited to show off this deck more. So I feel like the archetype has actually kind of been doing nicely for me, and I feel like just bringing more light to it, just to expand the archetype, get more ideas out there, and share my ideas with you guys, see what any ideas you have. Is just a very positive thing, and I think that's going to be good for the community and just the BGX archetype as a whole for Pioneer. And so just really love this archetype. And so I won't get into the nitty-gritty of the deck, as in my last video I outlined the deck and the certain choices we made, the certain one-ofs, especially as this deck is so oriented around Dark Petition and it has a kind of toolbox element to it, as many of you may already know. However, in this one, we're going to be going over the Abzan Greasefang matchup, which is pretty similar to how the classic BGX midrange plays against the graveyard-oriented decks. And I do feel like we're pretty well equipped, especially post-sideboard, to take care of the matchup. With that being said, hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing if you want to, and yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so here we are for game one, with a pretty nice hand on the play. Like having access to Nissa, Fatal Push, and then the later in the game Dark Petition with this deck, just as a nice broadly applicable hand we have going here. So we see Blooming Marsh mainly means Greasefang. Obviously we already know that it's Greasefang, but could also be like Jund Sacrifice, or the off chance that we do play against the mirror match, or just any sort of BGX midrange mirror. So turn 2, we do see the Informant discarding Parhelion, so of course we know that we're up against Greasefang. So here, turn 3, always want to be careful when the opponent has Parhelion in the graveyard, or obviously always going to be cautious with Parhelion in the graveyard, or of course Sky Sovereign, or the Chariot. But turn 3 especially, because it's so brutal if you get turn 3 killed by them. So we are able to leave up the Fatal Push plus the Field of Ruin to get the Revolt, just in case. They do have, fortunately they do not hear though, they just go Blooming Marsh into Thoughtseize. I swore they're going to take our Fatal Push, as that's going to be, the only answer, our only answer to their Greasefang. They take Languish, however, which I was kind of confused by, not really sure what they wanted to achieve by that. But yeah, let's just keep on going with this. We play out a Hive just past the turn, obviously not playing at the Nissa, just holding up the Fatal Push. Taking the damage from the Informant is fine for now. As we see, they have another Informant discarding just a land, so kind of just stabilizing. I mean, these Informants can pressure us in the future, but for now it should be fine. We just kind of want to control the Greasefang game right now and not be too worried by these cards, as we could take care of them pretty nicely later on with, for example, a Dark Petition, so like an Extinction Event, something like that. So here, this possibly was a mistake of going for the Nissa and not holding up Fatal Push. My thinking was that if they took Languish, then they just definitely don't have Greasefang, which is not too sound of reasoning. I feel like we could have just quite easily played out, or just kept up the Fatal Push for a potential Greasefang, and then would have been pretty fine for probably one extra turn. So probably should have waited a bit longer, but I wanted to. Life Total was getting a bit low, and with this deck, I don't mind trading Nissa early on, especially against these Informants, which are kind of becoming a bit of a threat, but I definitely should have waited a bit longer, as they do just have the evolution into Greasefang. Not sure how prominent evolution is in the Greasefang decks nowadays. I know back in the day they didn't run any, but here it's actually quite impactful for them, as they get us down to 1 with the Greasefang and Parhelion, of course. We're able to Fatal Push it, as we traded an Informant with the Nissa. And so we are kind of forced into dark petitioning for a... I guess we could have just gotten Extinction Event there. I got a Fatal Push. I'm not sure why I didn't get an Extinction Event. Yeah, I think that just would have been straight up better. Yeah, here they have another Informant discarding Parhelion, and then they actually just have the Can't Stay Away, so they kill us here. Yeah, so, I mean, we made a few mistakes there, but I think broadly we played alright. They just had a lot of interaction. I guess they had the Thoughtseize for interaction, but just a lot of ways of getting Greasefang into play and getting Parhelion into play, or into the graveyard as well. So sideboarding is pretty straightforward. Like any graveyard-oriented deck, or just any like deck that wants to leverage 2-for-1s, we do like the Go Blanks and Graveyard Trespassers, just probably being very nice in the matchup. Also great against like Phoenix, decks like that. Because we are up against Greasefang, obviously Noxious Grasp, and then Lost Legacy is nice. And then same thing with the Go Blanks and Trespassers. The Cage and the Lantern is going to be really, really nice as well. Cage, not too good against Greasefang as compared to a deck like Phoenix, as they have Beseiju and possibly like Abrupt Decay out of the sideboard to deal with it, whereas Phoenix like has the off chance of a Braid. However, I still really like it, and Lantern especially is nice as well. So we get to bring in 9 cards, which is quite impactful. So we do cut these 5 kind of mid-tier cards. They're just not too impactful for us. We end up taking out the Sign in Blood because we don't need it as much, as we're just really going to be loaded with interaction. Take out 1 Extinction Event, I believe, the Kalidas, and then the March of Wretched Sorrow. Could also bring out the Professor Onyx. However, I feel a bit naked without this card in the main deck, honestly. I just always like having access to it, even if we're not going to be like using it, or if it's not broadly applicable against the opposing deck, just because it's pretty much our only win con, aside from the Graveyard Trespassers that we brought in, obviously. But yeah, I just like keeping Onyx in, but I wouldn't fault anybody to leave it out, as we did bring in the extra Trespassers. But yeah, that was sideboarding. Definitely like the Lost Legacies. Obviously, Necromancer is probably just a bit better. Just don't have access to those right now, but yeah, like it. Okay, here for game 2, obviously have a lot of nice extra help from the sideboard after game 1, as we just saw. So first opening hand, not the best, especially on the draw. It's just really slow. We have like only 2 pieces of interaction, but having like Seasons Past, Dark Petition, and Kalidas in hand is not really that good. So we do end up mulliganing to this definitely keepable hand. I would just put back the Onyx, and we're pretty happy with it, especially with having access to the just direct form of graveyard interaction, and then the 2 removal spells is just really quite nice for us. So we're on the play, get the Urborg out. I opt not to get the Lantern out turn 1 just to get max value out of it, as the way our hand is orienting. I don't really think that we need to play it out immediately on turn 1. Opponent has just a Stitcher Supplier, so I'm not too worried at the moment. Into Seder Wayfinder, they get a Concealed Courtyard, and then just get a Can't Stay Away. So here, turn 3, we draw a Trespasser, which is quite nice. Not worried about them having a Greasefang because they have no way of getting any Parhelions or whatever vehicles into the graveyard. So Greasefang would not do anything, so we just get the time there to get at the Trespasser, which is very, very convenient for us. And I probably could have blocked there. The opponent made the attack into the Trespasser. Probably could have blocked. I wouldn't have minded if they milled over a vehicle, I don't think, as we did have access to the Lantern and then got to attack with the Glutton. And besides, if they had a Greasefang after and they milled over a vehicle, they wouldn't be in their attack step anyways, so it would have been fine to block there. So we get to flip the Glutton, or the Trespasser, into the Glutton, which is very nice. Play out the Soul Guide Lantern, and then read the bones. Putting away a trophy, and then putting another Trespasser on top, just because it looks like we're going to be the aggressor in this game, and so we want more access to, obviously, the aggressive cards. And yeah, we don't leave up the removal there just because we do have the access to the Lantern in case they go like Grizzly Salvage into Greasefang next turn, putting Parhelion into the graveyard. We still have access to the interaction, so fortunately get to play out the Read the Bones there. Here they just have a hardcast Chariot, which is probably like the best play they could have now. Definitely plays around Lantern quite nicely, but not too impactful. We're not too worried about that at the moment, as we're able to just play out the second Trespasser, Shotgun a Tomb to leave up our removal, of course. So here they have a Sky Sovereign, which is a bit more impactful, as they are able to use the Trespasser's Ward to get a Parhelion into the graveyard, and then they could Crew Chariot. However, we do have the Grasp for it, which is nice, and then they just pass the turn. But we do need to find an answer to this Sky Sovereign. Trophy would have been really, really nice there, but unfortunately we did not get there. And we do attack, getting the Parhelion out of the graveyard, and then just go blanking them, just because we have the mana to do it. It's not the best, as they just discard a Can't Stay Away and Duress, but just want to be mana efficient and use it there. So here they do have Evolution into Greasefang, but no vehicle into the graveyard, fortunately, so they are just left to crew the Sky Sovereign with it and attack, and they don't even have a card for the Ward ability, so we get to keep our Trespasser. We decay a token, a cat token, and we're still wanting to dig to a... Sorry, let me slow this down. We still want to dig to a removal spell for the Sky Sovereign, or just a way of mitigating them or just inhibiting them from being able to crew it, which we do there with the decay on the cat token. Drawing Go Blank was kind of bad, but whatever. They do still have one cat token, so that if they draw like a Stitcher Supplier or another Chariot, then we're in bad shape. But I like leaving them just top decking here and just getting rid of the cat token there. We do opt to just draw a card here, as the Lantern's not really doing much at the moment, as they're not really on their Greasefang vehicle plan. However, here they tap 1 minute, and I swear I had a heart attack. I thought they were going to have the Stitcher Supplier to crew the Sky Sovereign. Fortunately, it was just a Thoughtseize though, and so they take the Go Blank, which is not really doing much for us, fortunately. So we don't really care, and we're just fine with them losing the 2 life. And yeah, they're not even able to attack, as they're just forced to chump block, and drawing Dark Petition there was just gonna really end the game. So they block with the cat token, chump block, and then we run out the Dark Petition, and they just concede to it. Didn't have access to killing them on the spot. We probably just would have gotten, I guess, just the Seasons Past to get a lot of value next turn, as we were in pretty good shape, and had lethal without them having anything next turn or on the next turn. So yeah, pretty in good shape. Okay, here for game 3, did not make any of the other sideboard changes, and so we're going to be on the draw this time with a 1-lander that we can't keep. Would have been okay if that Field of Ruin was a black land, actually, but yeah, can't keep that. We get a, not the best, but very keepable hand, hand of 6, I should say. Just going to be putting back the Onyx pretty easily here. As the opponent starts off with just a courtyard and nothing else, we draw a tomb, which is really nice, so we're just able to run that out there right now. Not really caring about leading up Fatal Push for Informant, since we're not really going to be making that play otherwise. We draw a Lantern, which is really, really nice, as we're able to take that Chariot out. and then we just fatal push the Informant there. So we could have left the fatal push for a potential Greasefang on the next turn if they would have had it, but the way they were playing out, they didn't really have any form of accessing the graveyard or putting a vehicle into the graveyard. So I wasn't really too worried about that, and I knew that I wanted to get this Lost Legacy resolved on the next turn anyway, so we wouldn't even have the mana up for it. So that's why I went for that. And we see they have a Knight of Autumn post sideboard, so that's good to take note of, that Greasefang has access to this post sideboard nowadays against our graveyard interaction. Not sure if they would bring this in against us without seeing something like a Soul Guide Lantern or our Grafdigger's Cage, but still nice to take a note of. And so here we're able to just run out the Lost Legacy, which they just end up conceding to. So really obviously a nice line of events there. Lost Legacy is obviously not a direct kill to them. Same thing with Necromancer, of course. We are obviously naming Greasefang, but they could still have access to Hardcast Chariot, Hardcast Sky Sovereign, which they did in Game 2, but they are just like pretty pressured to not be in like a advantage position there after the Lost Legacy resolves. Alright, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed the match. Let me know if you would have made any different decisions there, but I think that was pretty straightforward, and I do think that the Greasefang matchup is pretty favored for us, especially post sideboard with the amount of access we have to graveyard hate and just like combo hate in the form of Lost Legacy. But yeah, been having a lot of success with this deck, surprisingly. A lot of fun with it. I feel like I feel even more comfortable playing it, surprisingly, than I do with just classic BGX midrange. Not really sure why. I think probably because it has more of like a linear play pattern that is more conducive to what I like. It's more controlling, gets even later into the game. Less like small like decision choices that you have to make that in midrange are very important. But it's still really interesting decisions you have to make in terms of what you get with Dark Petition, how you kind of orient the game in terms of when you want to cast your Seasons Past and when you want to start looping your deck. Just things like that really interest me, and I love being able to play Tracker and Nissa, just fun cards like that. But yeah, sorry I kind of rambled there, but hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching if you're here. Thank you so much. You're a great supporter, really helped me out, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, see you in the next video. Consider subscribing if you like the content, and thank you so much for watching.